So there is the big breakthrough in your work with Bilbao. Very important building because of its program, because of its location.
Modernity after the war was high-tech, straight lines without feeling. And so that's most of the world we live in, have those kind of buildings. And they still build that way. And I was trying to break out of this and find a way to humanize that. And it occurred to me that we lived in a time of movement, and that it was our time. Movement was our lives. Everything was moving, cars, planes. And I started to look at ways to do that. I was frustrated with postmodern. When my buddies were doing postmodern, I thought, you don't have to go back. Postmodernism, anthropomorphism, forget it. Why not go back 300 million years before man to fish? I don't know why I said that. There was a dream that came out of nowhere. Then I started thinking about it. I started drawing fish. I started looking at drawings of fish. Architects growing up in California at the same time, very close to Asian architecture and art. So we knew Hiroshiga. Hiroshiga's beautiful drawings of carp are beautiful movement, sense of movement. And I started to explore that. And I built a stupid fish for a fashion house in Firenze. It felt like it was moving. I then took this embarrassing fish. I cut the tail, I cut the head, I took the fins. I took it to its essence in a show at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis. And you still felt that sense of movement. So I realized it was not as complicated, that you could create forms and things that felt like they were in a state of movement, and that kind of movement was engaging humanity and feeling. And if you did it right, it created value to the experience and to the use of the building and to the life of the building and so on. Well, in the case of the New York Tower, I wanted the tower to have bay windows, because in New York there were bay windows in lower buildings, but never in the higher buildings. And I wanted to explore the idea of being able to walk out into space, kind of. If you put a bay window at each floor in the same place, from the outside in a tower, it becomes a line. And that was too formal for me. And so I wanted to loosen that up. So I started to explore the ideas of like a fabric moving across the facade. I woke up at 3 a.m. and I thought of Bernini Sculptures. And I thought of that Bernini sculptures aren't soft like the Michelangelo sculptures. Michelangelo's soft moving. Bernini has a kind of an edge. Santa Teresa has the folds are more defined. And I thought that could be architectural. And then if I could think of how that could move across the sky. So I did in my mind, I had this idea. I did a quick sketch. I came to the office. I had a young girl from, I think she was a graduate of Princeton or somewhere. And I asked her if she knew the difference between Bernini folds and Michelangelo folds. And she said yes. And I showed her a sketch, and I said, the model was this big. I said, could you make a maquette with these fabric with Bernini folds? And she did, and that became the building.
On a souvent dit de Gehry que c'était un artiste plus qu'un architecte. Je pense que c'est un authentique architecte, c'est même ce que j'appellerais un architecte intégral. Certes, il observe le travail des artistes, des peintres, des sculpteurs, il s'est largement inspiré du travail de Rauschenberg, peut-être de certaines idées de Matta Clark. Dans les années 70, il a travaillé avec Claes Oldenburg et Richard Serra, il connaît bien la sculpture médiévale, mais son travail est un authentique travail d'architecte. Gehry nous rappelle que l'architecture est une pratique artistique qui intègre des connaissances, qui s'appuie sur des connaissances, qui génère des connaissances, mais qui repose avant tout sur des décisions de proportion, d'échelle, de forme, qui sont des décisions éminemment artistiques.
So, back to Paris and to the Vuitton Foundation.
This was also emotional when I met Bernard Arnault, and he said, come in my car, I want to show you a site. He took me to Jardin d'Acclimatation, and when I realized where we were and what he wanted to do there, I became emotional, and I did actually cry. I get very emotional about this. So I cried because I realized that Proust must have certainly played there with his friends. And this was going to touch the French history and in a way, an important way, and I love that idea. So